All right. Hello, everybody. We're back for the next installment, or perhaps first, depending what order you watch these in, of the third annual I Am Norwood candidate interviews. With me today is Norwood mainstay and incumbent school board member, Michael Sprague. Mike, good morning.
Morning, Paul.
Let's jump into it. We both look busy today. I don't know if we're actually that's reality or not, but we look the part. So let me jump in with a couple of questions here. First question I'd like to ask: why are you doing this again? What continues to motivate you?
Okay, well, Paul, I just came back yesterday from 3 days down Atlantic City at the school board convention, and that's an event that always energizes me. And some of the topics I undertook this time included AI, and also there was a school that just started doing podcasts to get out positive information on the district. So it's these kind of innovations that really interest me, and I like to try to bring them back to Norwood. But I just always kind of feel like my job's never done in Norwood. There's always something going on. There's always something new we're trying to do, and we have relatively new administration, which I'm hoping we can make more of a permanent administration. And so I look forward to working with our administration. I think we're coming out of COVID. COVID had a really negative impact on students and on teachers and all of our community. But coming out of COVID, we're now starting to see the light. We had a big improvement in our test scores last year to the year before. I anticipate even a bit, as big, if not a bigger improvement this year. So, it's kind of like we're starting all over again. I mean, COVID definitely was the most difficult period that I've ever experienced in my 36 plus years as a board member. It was difficult in so many different ways, just keeping the kids safe, keeping the staff safe, and then the economics of it and so forth. So we're coming out of that now, and it's almost like we're kind of starting over, and so I'm excited about where the district is going, and that's why I'm running again.
Okay. Uh, let's go in the time machine real quick. Where did you grow up and attend elementary school and high school?
Okay, so actually, I'm actually a native of Teaneck, but my parents moved to Norwood when I was about 20 months old. And so I lived in Norwood from age 20 months till age 20. And then I moved back about 12 years later. So I did go to Norwood Public School through second grade. And then my parents moved me to the Catholic school. I went to high school at St. Joseph Regional in Montvale. I played football and baseball there. And when I got out of high school, I had to put myself through college. So the first 2 years I commuted to Ramapo College. I worked as much as I could, and I saved up money, and I was able to transfer to Northeastern University. I was a journalism major, and they had a co-op program. So after my junior year, I went to work in a newspaper in Connecticut as a reporter, and I really enjoyed it. And so I was supposed to only stay for 3 months and then go back to school, but the person who was going to come and fill the position after me decided not to come. So I stayed for 6 months. After 6 months, they offered me a full-time job. So I ended up staying for 2.5 years. And I left the paper as an assistant suburban editor. So I went back to Northeastern. I finished my senior year. And then I went and worked as a financial editor for a daily newspaper in New Haven, Connecticut. And it was during that time that I started applying for journalism graduate schools, business schools, law schools, and so forth. And I ultimately decided to go to law school. And I chose to go to New York Law School in the city because they had professors who were involved in communications law, which was really, in its infancy at that time. And so I went and I worked with these professors throughout my law school career. We wrote some books together and things like that. I presented. I was on a television show one day presenting. But in any event, the bottom line is it was that's basically my background as far as education. But I always felt that growing up in Norwood was a positive thing. There was just, I was the oldest of 7 children. That was not unusual to have 7 kids in a family at that time. And it was just, kids were just out on the streets all the time, running around playing. And it was, really was a positive positive environment.
Excellent. You may have already sort of touched on this, but what, if anything, did you take away from your childhood education that you see as applicable today?
Well, I think the education that we got is a lot different, quite frankly, than what's going on today. You know, today we're trying to be more child focused and focus on the needs of the individual child. I mean, when I went to school, it was just, 40 kids in a class or 30 kids in class, whatever it might be, and the teacher was in front of the room writing on the board or just, talking. Today, it's a lot different. I mean, I would be happy to go back to school today. I mean, it seems like a lot more fun, quite frankly. I know there's a lot of tension, a lot of pressure for kids to do well, but I think today it's a lot more creative. And I think the differentiation of instruction has been something that has come along during my time on the board. It's something that we've tried to get our teachers trained in so that they can obviously deliver it to the students in their classrooms. And to me, that's really the biggest difference. Again, things are different. Society's different today. You don't see as many kids walking to school. We used to walk to school. We used to walk home for lunch and walk back to school. So, you just don't see that anymore. And, that's a more reflection on society than anything else, I think. And, kids have play dates now, like my grandkids, they have play dates, whereas we just walked down to the neighbor's house, there's 5 kids or there's 3 kids or whatever. And it was just, we were just outside all the time. So it's a lot different environment, but at the same time, Norwood's always been a family first kind of a town. And I think it's a kind of a town that is a positive place for kids to grow up.
Excellent. What, if anything, are the biggest issues as you see it facing Norwood Public School at the present time?
I don't know that we have an issue that's particularly Norwood related. I think we just have the same concerns and same difficulties as pretty much everyone else. Number one, right now, in terms of something that's come on the scene as a result of COVID, is trying to find employees. We don't, fortunately, we don't have to worry that much about transportation because of the small size of our town, but finding bus drivers, impossible. But even in Norwood, we're having problems just finding teachers, which has never been a problem. I mean, there were days or times where, if we needed a 4th grade teacher, we probably had 50 or 60 resumes sitting in the superintendent's office at any given time, unsolicited. Now you have to advertise for every position, and you may or may not get responses depending on the nature of the position. So it's a totally different world post-COVID in terms of hiring employees and and retaining employees, not because they don't like the district, but just because of personal preferences. We've hired, for example, aides, and then they work about 29 hours a week, and they say, well, you know what, this is too much. I need something less. So it's again just a different employment environment. And I think from going to my county meetings, going to the state meetings, at the convention this week, it was all over the place. I mean, I know our superintendent went to a number of seminars talking, that talked about how to try to recruit and retain teachers. So I think we have to go, we just can't expect to put up an ad and get the response that we used to get. I think we're going to have to try to go to events at colleges, perhaps career days or something, and try to recruit people. So it's going to be, it's just, again, it's just something that we're going to have to focus on. But we have difficulty basically filling just about every position that we have at this point. So that's something that's come along as a result of COVID. That is a big challenge. The budget's always a challenge. We've now been under a 2% cap, which means that we can only increase our operating budget by 2% each year. And we've been under that cap since about 2010, 2011. So it's kind of this cumulative effect that, you really can't expand the budget. We did expand it this year because we had permission from the state to expand it without having to go to the voters. So we were able to use that extra money to add a couple teaching positions. But, year in and year out, we haven't done that. Year in and year out, we've been coming in at the 2%. But at the same time, because of the marketplace in terms of employees, there's pressure to increase, right? Increase money for substitutes, for example, because you have a hard time finding substitutes. So, we're not paying anybody who's in contract with our district 2%. Our employees are getting more than 2%. So it's a constant battle to try to balance the budget. So that's only been aggravated by COVID because of the inflation. Okay, I mean, our transportation expense went, I think it was like somewhere around 27,000 to like 87,000 in 2 years or 3 years. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, thank God we only have, a limited transportation budget, but it's those kinds of things. There's upward pressure on wages. There's upward pressure on things that we buy for, supplies that we buy and so forth. So that is just going to be something we're going to have to deal with, and it's going to be difficult for the foreseeable future.
Okay, I think you already alluded to this in the answer you just gave me, but name one thing you would like to see Norwood Public School put more taxpayer money towards.
Well, first of all, I'm not in favor of just, willy-nilly raising taxes, okay? But, because as I've been going around town the last 3 weeks or so, it's reaffirmed, what I knew, that, we do have a very substantial senior population in our town. I think when you're on the Board of Ed, sometimes you get tunnel vision, and you think that everyone in Norwood has kids in your school, when the opposite is really true. So, I think that our challenge going forward is going to be to continue to spend and be innovative. So spend money on new programs, be innovative, but at the same time, it's, we're going to have to go cautiously, because I don't think you can keep expecting to just go back and hit the taxpayer for something over to 2% on an annual basis. We have something called bank cap, and bank cap is just a permission, essentially. It's not money that we get, it's permission from the state to go beyond the 2% cap. And so you have bank cap, and don't ask me how they calculate it down in Trenton, but they do. And they give us a number, and they say, this is how much bank cap you have this year, and it's going to expire, in 2 years or whatever the case may be. Now, we tried to stay away from spending bank cap. We did spend $45,000 when we brought the police officer into the school. And we also spent money in bank cap when we had these unforeseen costs due to COVID. We're testing, we're doing testing for our teachers, where we had to bring in machines to take temperatures of students. We had to bring in plastic shields, masks, and all that stuff. None of that obviously was in our budget because it was unforeseen. So, those are the only 2 times before this year that they dipped into the bank cap, and all that, again, that just raises taxes. So I don't think that can be your answer. You can't say, well, we're just gonna, we'll do whatever we want. We're gonna use bank cap to cover the bill. So I think we're gonna, we want to go forward. We want to be innovative, but at the same time, we always have these economic restraints. So I think we have to respect the taxpayers in that regard. And again, I look forward to working with administration. Administration's had some innovative ideas. The 2 principal concept, which we were able to do with virtually without, increasing our administrative costs. So, those kinds of things are something that we want to continue. This year, we brought the Korean language program in. We'll see how that goes. Hopefully the students will take to that. And again, I think there's more that we want to do, certainly, but at the same time, I don't think we can just write, we don't have a blank check. So we have to be respectful of the taxpayers at all times.
Excellent. And then relatedly, anything you'd like to see less taxpayer money spent on by Norwood Public School?
Yeah, state mandates.
Okay.
This has been a bugaboo really for the whole time I've been on the board. There is allegedly a law that says if the state mandates, the state pays, but that's not reality. So what happens is whenever something happens in society, it trickles down to another requirement that we have to put into our curriculum, or another requirement, that costs us money at the local level.
Okay.
So those are the kind of things that I think across the board. This is obviously just not Norwood. This is something you hear, I hear about again at the county meetings, state meetings, is these unfunded mandates. So one of the things we try to do through New Jersey school boards, and I'm on the board of directors of that organization, we try to push back through legislators to get funding for some of these things that, some of these requirements that the state is putting on us. So that's one of the things I would like to see: less taxpayer money going to state mandates. I'd like to see the state picking up more money. One of the positives I can say is that we have something called extraordinary aid. Extraordinary aid we have to file for it every year. And basically we are allowed to put into that application special education costs that are above a certain level. And again, in theory, right, the state is supposed to reimburse us 100% for those costs, but that never happens. However, in recent years, the state has been reimbursing us at a higher percentage. So we have been realizing more of a reimbursement than in the past. But again, it's never close to 100%. So, these are the kind of things I would like to see the state pick up more of a burden, more of our burden, and fund some of the mandates that they put upon us.
Okay. Give me a topic of one class or period that you'd like to see added to Norwood Public School.
I think it would have to be in the area of technology, because that seems to me to be where jobs are going to be in the future. I mean, we have this kind of situation where we, again, we're at the beginning of the children's education, obviously. So we're educating kids who aren't even going to get to the workforce, right? For many years. So, say 15 years. What is the workforce going to look like? What is the job market going to be 15 years from now? Well, again, we don't know, but so I think anything we can do in terms of preparing our students in a technological area, I think would be a positive. Obviously, the basics are important as well. You have to be able to read and write and do arithmetic, but certainly, I think we have to have it. We always have to have an eye, even at our level, as to where the jobs are, what fields are emerging, and we have to try as best we can to get those kinds of programs into our school. I think AI is going to be a game changer, maybe not today or tomorrow, but going forward, I think it's going to be a game changer in many areas of the school. This program I went to yesterday in Atlantic City, it was fascinating because you would think, okay, AI, you're just talking about students, and you give them an assignment, and are they going to do it themselves, or are they going to use AI? That's like, that's not really where it's at. There's so many different programs that are beneficial to delivering curriculum, and also to administering the district as well. For BAs and for administrators to track test scores and do all this detailed, pull all this information together in a detailed way about a particular student. So I think AI is going to have a tremendous impact on us going forward.
Excellent. And I'm going to jump around a little to make sure we get a good cross-reference of the questions I have here. I'm going to give you a hypothetical. A child is observed bringing a lighter into a classroom. The teacher tells him or her to simply put it away, but does not confiscate it. 5 minutes later, the same child lights another child's hair on fire with the lighter. The child is then hospitalized and requires a course of psychological care. Break down the issues you see facing the school thereafter.
Well, the first issue, obviously, is that the teacher needs to confiscate the lighter, and the child needs to be removed from the classroom, and the parents need to be called. So, that's basically a disciplinary matter. But, that's obviously where this falls off the rails. And after that, it's a matter of obviously liability on the part of the board, which, I wouldn't want to have to defend. So, yeah, I mean, look, I think our staff is well trained to handle these kinds of situations if they occur. I think we've been very fortunate that we haven't had these kinds of situations. In our district, at the candidates night, there was a question about the HIB statute, the bullying statute. And quite frankly, we haven't really had that classic kind of a situation where that you read about in the papers where poor child is, continually harassed over a period of time. I think, our situation is more just, one-time issues where somebody makes a ridiculous comment, or a comment that's very mean or demeaning, and again, it's it usually doesn't rise to the HIB level, but clearly we have trained our staff as to appropriate action needs to be taken when these kinds of events occur, and I'm fully confident that if that did occur in Norwood Public School, it would be handled properly.
Excellent. And you kind of touched on my next question. If you had the ability to single-handedly amend or rewrite New Jersey's mandates as to handling HIB matters, what would you want to change, if anything?
Well, it's not so much I'd want to change the HIB statute as much as I would like there to be perhaps something put out by the state that would explain the statute to the parents, because and there's two things of concern. First is, as we talked about at candidates night, there's three things that we have to find in order to affirm a HIB, or affirm the administration's finding of a HIB, because that's what we do. The administration makes a finding, and then we either affirm or not affirm. But to affirm the administration, we have to basically make three findings. And one of them is whether this incident had a substantial negative impact on the child's education, meaning that if it happened on Tuesday, the child didn't show up for school on Wednesday, and the parent couldn't get the child to go to school on Thursday, or the child, it was a great student and now is, can't focus. Again, that is that's not the usual case we see in our school, but that is an element of it. So yes, you could have a situation where the other parts of the statute are met, where the act falls within the acts covered by the statute, where where the act is done against a person who's in a protected class. Okay, so those are pretty, you could find those in most cases. It's that third prong that you have to struggle with. And a lot of times what happens is, I don't say a lot of times, but at times what happens is, when the child and the parents are first interviewed, they say, no, there hasn't been any impact with the child's education. And then they kind of learn about the statute after that. And then they come back and say, oh yeah, there has been impact with this, that. So then, the board's like, oh, so, you have to just look at that credibility aspect of it at that point. But I think just explaining to the parents about the statute would be helpful. The other element of it is that I think people sometimes over dramatize the impact of the statute in terms of the penalty. The penalty to a child is usually not much different than if we found it was a violation of our code of conduct, which again is almost always found, right? Whenever we have this kind of an investigation, we almost always find a code violation, right? Where the child said something that was inappropriate, was unkind, whatever the case may be. And then there's a penalty imposed for that. We're not allowed to tell the parents of the alleged victim what that penalty is. We're not allowed to tell them what the penalty is if we impose if we do find a HIB. Now there is, I guess the thing about the HIB is that it does stay with your record. So, my feeling is that if a child has this one-off kind of an incident, even if it is a HIB, I don't believe that should follow the child, to high school. Okay, so again, I think sometimes parents, they want to appeal us, and they want to, and they come after us because they don't want that on their child's record. But at the end of the day, I think it should just end at the 8th grade, and it shouldn't follow them, if they go, when they go to high school. So, those are the two things about the HIB. I think it's more just educating the parents than anything else. We struggle, with having to make those findings, and that's our job. But I think the parents a lot of times misunderstand, what the statute says we have to do.
Okay. Um, you one more somewhat serious one, and then we'll shuffle it a little for the end. What, if anything, would you like to see Norwood Public School do differently with regard to special needs children?
We Norwood has a very large population of special ed students, far more than many of our surrounding towns. And I guess there could be a number of different reasons for that. But the reality is that we have to educate whoever shows up at our door, right? So, and we do that. So whatever it takes, we're going to do. One of the things that we have done within the last few years is to create preschool classes. Now, this was done at the cost, so to speak, of evicting our tenant, which was the Valley. They had been renting 5 classrooms. I think they're down to 2 classrooms now. But
Okay.
we had this. We created the space in that fashion. That's often the biggest problem for having this kind of a class. But we created these classes. They're approximately 50% special ed children. These are 3 or 4-year-olds, and 50% of general ed students. General ed students pay tuition, which would be comparable to what the parents would pay if they sent the children to a daycare facility. So it serves really both groups of children. And my young grandson, who's going to turn 4 soon, he's in a class in his district, similar class, where he's a general ed student in one of these combined classes. Mm-hmm. So the purpose of the class is obviously to keep the kids in our district, get them to assimilate to the school, get them to meet friends, meet kids who they would then potentially go through the entirety of a grammar school career with. And rather than them going out to either across the street to the Valley program or to some other program outside of Norwood, we hope we hope that this is going to work. We hope that the students will stay with us as they age through our school. And again, some of these students may ultimately be mainstream. One of the things that we have as our guiding principle in special ed is that we are supposed to have children in the least restrictive environment, which generally means that they're supposed to be in the mainstream classes to the greatest extent possible. So that's really the goal. And by having them in our school at age 3 or 4, I think we have a better chance of achieving the best outcome for the child. Now, we also and looked recently at the data in other towns in terms of special ed populations. And it's pretty clear that it's a huge imbalance. There's, half the towns in the Valley have a very low population, and half the towns have a very high population, including Norwood. So, one of the things that we've preliminary talked about just amongst, ourselves in Norwood is contacting these other districts that have the high populations to see if we can create classes in our schools for this population, and perhaps have one age group in Norwood, another age group in another town, and so forth, so that we're not paying tuition either to the Valley program or to a program outside of Norwood. So, again, you have to deliver the services that you're legally bound by, and that's what we want to do because it's the best thing for the child. But at the same time, the costs are just escalating along with the cost of everything else. So, transportation, as I said, has gone up dramatically. If you send a child out of district, you're paying, a lot of money for transportation in addition to tuition. So we always have to keep looking at ways to provide the services and try to reduce the cost at the same time. And it's not easy, but it's something that we really have to do. So I think going forward, that's what we will do. I think, we have a very solid director running our child study team at this point. So, I'm confident that we are providing the proper services for our kids, and we will continue to do so.
Excellent. All right. Couple of the couple of random ones. We're a little over, but that's okay. My apologies, but
No problem.
let's see. This one might offend some people, but I need you to be honest. Were you ever especially happy when you received Smarties or Mounds on Halloween growing up?
Mounds, definitely, not Smarties. I'm not a big sugar fan, but Mounds are one of my favorites.
Okay. Well, for Smarties, have you ever wanted to send your child back out if they came home with them on Halloween?
Not send them back out, but they probably went right in the trash.
Fair enough. All right. Pretend I am a parent who attends school board meetings and is virulently in favor of bringing back the use of dunce caps on wayward children. What, if anything, would be your objection to this suggestion?
Well, first of all, I would hope that we wouldn't have someone come in and make that suggestion, but obviously, that wasn't even something I saw when I was growing up. So I'm not sure what era that was, but yeah, obviously, you can't, our discipline code doesn't include anything like that, anything that's going to try to humiliate a child or embarrass a child. Our discipline code is intended to, correct whatever behavior may have gotten the child in trouble. It's not really punitive, it's more that we want to correct the behavior and make the family aware of the behavior. And we anticipate the family is also going to deal with the child in that regard. So, you can't have a punitive, at the elementary level. You certainly can't have punitive impact or punitive, results when a child misbehaves. I mean, you have to deal with it. You have to deal with it firmly and immediately, but the punishment, so to speak, has to be appropriate. And embarrassing or harassing a child is not appropriate.
Okay, okay. Mario's or cousins? Explain.
I'm sorry?
Mario's or cousins? Explain.
Okay. Mario's. I like I think they just make a better pie. And we basically go with the vegetable or eggplant, and their eggplant is unbelievable. So yeah, Mario's.
Excellent. Lowest temperature which you would allow your child to wear shorts to school?
I've had this battle. You know what? Probably depending on age, because quite frankly, at probably middle school, it's not worth the battle anymore. So, it probably just, younger ones, I would probably cut it off at maybe 45 degrees or so, or 50 degrees. But, if they want to wear shorts when they're middle school or high school, God bless them. I mean, it's go for it.
All right. Now briefly, because we are in overtime and officially have 3 minutes, 23 seconds left.
Okay.
Anything you'd like to get out there that maybe I didn't ask about today?
No, not really. I appreciate you doing this, first of all. Any information that people can get about the board, I think is helpful. We're kind of in a period now where people do not come to the board meetings, and we have very few people who even watch the board meetings virtually. So, you never know if that's good or bad.
Right.
But basically, yeah, right now we're in that kind of a period. We've had periods where we had people regularly come to meetings, but usually people come to meetings when they're unhappy. So I guess it's a good thing. But it's always good to have feedback, positive or negative feedback from the public. Again, I think right now we're in a position where we're ready to take off on a lot of different programs, and I think we're ready to really move forward in terms of our kids having, I think, to the most part, caught up from the COVID situation, and now moving forward, I look forward to working with the administration and the board on our the initiatives that we have started, and on new initiatives that inevitably will come down the pike. I think particularly in the area of AI and technology.
Excellent. Now, in closing, I just want you to look at the camera, say your name, then say, "I am Norwood."
Mike Sprague, I am Norwood.
Thank you, Mike, for joining us.
All right, Paul, thank you.